Shall report. All right, it is 6 o'clock, and we have a quorum. All 4 members of the commission are present. And so I'm going to call the joint meeting of the Norwich Public Utilities Board of Commissioners and the Sewer Authority for Tuesday, June 29th, 2021, to order. The first item on the agenda is 15 minutes of public comment. So if there's anyone out there on Zoom or the phone or any other device and would like to make some comments, please speak up.
I would like to make a comment. My name is Paula Lasitra from Norwich Woods LLC. Can you hear me?
Not ideal, but I think so.
Yeah, we'll get it cranked up. Hang on.
All right, try it again.
My name is Paula Lasitra from Norwich Woods LLC. Is that better?
Yeah.
Excellent. I just wanted to follow up and ask the board if they had a chance to review and have dialogue internally about the $6,575 attorney and title fees that went to foreclosure and litigation before there was a conversation with me, and we developed a system where emails weren't being received because Chris LaRosa's email wasn't correct on the website, and we had lots and lots of difficulties, but now we've streamlined the process and I have a representative for my 70 plus accounts that I manage individually, and I no longer get them by paper and email. So we now have a process, but my gripe was that we didn't attempt to get this process prior to going directly to Lloyd Langhammer. And I did pay the $10,000 use charges, and I have recovered almost all of it from my tenants because they weren't getting their paper bills, and a lot of them didn't understand the process like myself. So has there been any internal? I know last time you all said you were going to have a conversation about it behind the scenes, and I was just checking on the status of that.
No, I mean, just first of all, just so you and anyone else who is listening understand, this is a period for public comment, not for ongoing debate. So it's not normal for us to answer questions and engage in debate with people who call in. I mean, that said, I mean, I think we basically believe that these sort of legal and administrative matters are best left to the administration and not to the Board of Commissioners. So, you know, we have not taken a position on it other than to be, you know, supportive of what the administration is doing.
I haven't gotten a response from administration. I was told to bring it up with the board.
We'll address it.
All right, well, it is going to be addressed, so, but there is no answer for you today.
Okay, so how should I follow up?
I will follow up with you, Paula, in the next few days. This is Chris LaRose.
Oh, Chris, excellent. Okay. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to make public comment? And I would reiterate that while we try to accommodate her, the objective of public comment is for the public to give their thoughts, not for us to engage in debate. Anyway, if there's anyone out there who would like to make some comments, we'd be happy to listen. Once again, if there is anyone out there who wants to make public comments, please do so now.
And just for the record, sir, I wasn't debating anything. I was just trying to get a channel of communication. And this is the only avenue that proved effective.
Okay. All right. Is there anyone else out there who would like to make any comment? Hearing none, I'm going to close the public comment period. And the next item on the agenda is approval of the minutes of the NPU and Sewer Authority meeting of May 25th. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make that motion, Bob, that we approve Tuesday, May 25th.
Thank you, Bill. We have a second. Michael, all those in favor?
Aye.
It is unanimous. The next item is information and update provided to the board prior to tonight's meeting, including leadership team update, retirement update, and COVID-19 financial update. Chris?
Are there any questions for myself or the staff? Right. I would like to discuss two items on here, and that's the retirement update and the COVID-19 financial update. Specifically on the COVID-19 financial update, we are back to normal business. We're seeing normal revenue, and would want to feel out the board if we are okay just to come out with a normal financial package instead of the extra materials being gathered for the COVID-19.
Yes.
Okay, very good. And then as well, as far as the retirement update, we had a successful retirement program. We did all the payouts, and with the COVID delayed hiring, and we're at 139 out of 150 employees right now, we have more than exceeded the expected savings of that program. And so everything going forward with, for people retiring at the top step, people getting hired at the lower step, and the payouts already done, once again, we have more than exceeded the expected savings, and was wondering if that would be something else we can discontinue the additional reporting. Like more, we're happy to do it.
How many people took the early retirement total?
In here.
Really? 7? Wow. Okay.
Yeah, and we had people retired who did not take it as well. So, there was a few people who, because we were able to dictate when they were going to go or when they weren't going to go, they decided not to take that. And so some people did not take the incentive. We probably could have made it work, but for whatever reason, it didn't happen. So we did get more than 7 retirements.
Yep.
In the process.
But overall, we made as much money or more than what we expected.
Much.
Okay, great.
Good job. Very good.
Do we have any other questions? Steve, Chris, do you have another item you wanted to bring up, or is that?
Nope, that was all there.
All right, so the next item is the action items. We have a few items this evening. The first is a resolution for the county side water main project. Chris?
That's actually countryside, apologize.
I'm sorry. No,
You read well,
No, I've got county in here, at least, it was a speako, not a typo.
So this one here, I wish we didn't have to bring it forward to the board. We approved this resolution a year and a half ago or so, prior to COVID, or right at the start of COVID. Because of all the issues that have come up with, supply chain issues, and Jeff will go into those, the prices come up. So we have to pass a new resolution, and Jeff will go into the details on that.
So basically, the original resolution was for $750,000, which at the time, based on our engineering estimates, was enough to cover the cost of the project, engineering, legal, appropriate contingency, things like that. The reality is the construction portion came in about $200,000 above what we had budgeted. They attribute that everything from the cost of ductile iron pipe to labor to, I don't think it's any secret to anyone what the market's like right now. So we have raised that to $997,000, or just short of $1 million. Our projected total budget is about $860,000 for the project, so we'll have a little bit of a cushion to make sure we don't have to do this again. The good news in all this is DPH is covering all but about $100,000 of the costs associated with it. The balance of that will be made up by us and by the residents and their contributions. DPH.
Oh, DPH. Oh,
yeah. And so, so it was far above the normal grant that you would receive for a project like this, and we have all but one resident signed. We hope to have that completed momentarily, and lease is ready to start as soon as August. So the schedule now is to get this if you approve it tonight, we can get it on the agenda for the council meeting on the 6th for the initial read, and then final approval 2 weeks later, but that's the 19th. And at that point, we would have what we need. There's only 2 other things. There'll be an additional ordinance with regards to the specific assessment to the customers. That only has to go to the council. And then, we're 99% sure we don't have to go in front of the commission for the city plan, but, there's several inquiries into Mike just to make sure that we have that covered.
How many hookups from it? How many hookups do they reach?
17.
So it's about $50,000 per connection.
Yes, more than an individual well,
Yeah.
but it's getting rid of a public water system that has been problematic for,
And the one person that hasn't signed is not because they don't want to participate, right? Or,
I think it's, we saw a lot of this in the gas expansion program. When you're gonna do a major upgrade in your home, it just takes a little while to get comfortable. Mary Lou Richling is managing that for us out of our program management office. She's, just working with them, but I don't see any reason, why that's not gonna go forward.
because they wouldn't be able to say, because they're going to ban them as well, right?
Correct. The community system can essentially, insert, so that would, there really isn't a choice there, but it's a really good deal for the residents. Good that we were able to bring that to the community and take care of this problem.
So, we would entertain a resolution to accept the new budget and also to authorize Fritz or somebody on the team to go to the city council and seek approval there as well. We have such a motion.
I think it's nice.
So moved.
And Bill. All those in favor? It is unanimous.
and I have an appointment with the city manager tomorrow to get this on the next city council agenda.
Okay.
Chris, is the Amtrak Drive area, is that serviced by public water?
Yes. That's been serviced since probably the 70s or 80s.
Are there any other homes near, countryside that, are not hooked up to public water?
No, they all are, but if they develop down the road, there's some areas that have developed, past this area, and they could use this as a tie-in.
Either on the wall or.
Yeah.
All right, the next item on the agenda is a presentation followed by a discussion and vote, potentially on a resolution, for the sewer connection fee hardship payment limit. Laura?
So for the finance and audit committee meeting that we had earlier this month, we put together a presentation. I don't have that presentation, but I do have all the documentation here. There are multiple documents in this package. The first one is the resolution. Then the next one is the actual policy. And as Mike will go over later, we did go through this in depth with the finance and audit committee meeting. What this does is it establishes a policy that allows us to give customers who are connected to our sewer system the ability to pay the sewer capital connection fee over a 2-year period. When you have to, generally speaking as an emergency, connect to the sewer system, you have some significant outlays for the construction costs. Paying upfront the entire sewer capital connection fee can be a hardship on customers. What it does is establishes a hardship policy, so the customer would be able to attest on that affidavit that it is a hardship for them to make that payment in full, all at once upfront before the connection is established. It gives them the opportunity to pay it over 24 months as part of their utility bill, and then they would be able to connect at the beginning of the process as opposed to having to pay upfront. There is a agreement that outlines all of the requirements, and there is a lien that is placed on property.
Typically, failed system, they're paying to have somebody pumping out their system until they get a contractor. Contractors aren't cheap, and so this is just giving somebody a leg up to catch up.
Do they have to provide any financial documentation to us?
There's an affidavit, but we're not looking at their financial statements.
So they just have to attest to it, and we agree.
It doesn't fit the normal hardship that like we would with a utility customer. You're doing very well, but all of a sudden you don't have $10,000 in the bank. It's a little different.
And the reason why this particular policy needs board approval, according to our attorney, is because it's based on The existing regulation requires that charge to be paid up front, or that connection fee to be paid up front before the connection's made. So this is sort of a deviation from that.
So there is a resolution in your packet. Take a look at the resolution, and if it meets with your approval, I would entertain a motion to approve the resolution.
In this pack that we just got here?
Yes.
No, Mike, that's the one, that's the pension obligation.
Oh,
That's right.
Where is this?
Laura just handed it out just a second ago.
Oh, sorry. It was too obvious.
The one with the big clip.
Start going around to read the year. Okay, so we need a motion to
We
accept.
need a motion to either, approve the resolution as written or to amend it.
Well, may I speak?
Sure.
I mean, we went over this at the audit and finance committee meeting, as I understand it, it gives people an option to pay for 24 months, instead of all at once to hook up the 2,500 for equivalent dwelling units, they say. Typically, for one house, that's one dwelling unit. I think even if there's 5 or 6 people in the house, it's still just one unit, so. I mean, it seems pretty reasonable, relative to other expenditures people have to, get this kind of an upgrade to their property and be able to finance for 21 months. So I'd certainly recommend that we approve it as it is. That's a motion to take that as a motion.
Do we have a second? All right, all those in favor of adopting the resolution as presented?
Aye.
The vote is unanimous, and it is approved. The next item is the CMAQ update. Commissioner Peel.
All right. Okay, since our last NPU meeting, the CMAQ board met twice on May 27th and June 24th. The May 27th meeting, CMAQ reported that further progress has been made to resolve issues with fuel cell energy and the subbase, concerning the subbase fuel cell project. The project portfolio overall was a mixed bag, with Microgen and Pierce coming in above budget. However, transmission project number 1 and the community solar garden were below budget. The budget committee reported out that the review of the first quarter operating expenses, as well as a review of the capital and purchase order policies. The governance committee reported out discussions to review the committee structure and the board and committee chair succession plans. The board also discussed the general manager's decision to discontinue the $45 per megawatt RIF funds to offset the community solar garden purchase power agreement, effective May 1st. Those RIF funds will be used for other projects at CMAQ. CMAQ also reported the Hydro-Quebec interconnection agreement, 4 years in the making, and with positive terms that included several concessions to improve CMAQ's status as an interconnection rights holder. CMAQ also reported out that ISO New England considered the NYPA firm peaking power we talked about a couple of months ago to qualify for capacity charges. However, even with that result, CMAQ informed NYPA that the project is considered uneconomic without further adjustments, with discussions to continue. And there was a special meeting of committee chairs held on June 17th to discuss committee structure and the possible merging or dissolving of committees. No firm decisions were made. However, the chairs of the audit committee and budget committee, which is myself and Chris, voiced skepticism that a merging of those two committees would be beneficial and to consider alternatives. At the June 24th meeting, I had a hard stop, so I had to get off early. So if Bob or Chris wanted to fill in for the June 24th meeting?
I was on vacation, Bob, so tag you.
Okay. You gotta go, oh, Brad.
Actually, I don't think there was much that happened. It was a very short meeting.
Okay.
It ended at 11:30, so, I don't think there was anything, it was mostly just routine.
Okay, all right, well, thank you very much.
There is one thing that apparently the trial is going to be starting in November of this year. I know that's been delayed for a number of months. the waiting period, the more the attorney's charged, because these are former, these were employees or board members when the alleged improprieties occurred. We had an obligation to cover their legal costs, and you know, correspondingly, insurance company declined to cover that cost. So we're in the process of litigating with them, and it has been quite an interesting series. But hopefully there's going to be an end. There'll be some light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah. Right now, there's jury selections last week of October, and then it's trial is scheduled November 1st to the 26th.
Wow, was that long, 3 weeks? Yeah, there was one other thing real quick. We got an email just yesterday, not to mention names, but David Meisinger, the new CEO, he seems to be taking a very keen interest in streamlining the organization. So he totally disbanded the Enabling Services Division, and that resulted in 2 employees that had to be reassigned. So.
That's what's going on.
Yeah.
The next item is the Financial and Audit Committee subcommittee. Michael.
Yes. So we had quite an extensive meeting earlier this month, I think on the 9th. And we had presentations by Laura on the sewer hookup financing. And then we had 3 other items. We also had the leadership team update, the retirement update, which Chris already went over here. But we had a little review what's to be expected from the American Rescue Plan Act in terms of the money that's going to make it to the city of Norwich for capital improvements. And basically, we're looking at $27 million, which about 18.5 of it is going to be used in 21, and 8.5 million in 22 for projects that NPU and the city agree on. I don't have no idea what they are, but I'm not privy to that. Chris might tell you. So, okay. Basically, we're supposed to continue to advocate for funding of entry projects and for the city manager. There's a top 10 infrastructure projects that we have that Chris can tell you about if you want to know. And also lead and copper water services, which is new water lines basically, updating water lines.
It's on the older lines from the curb to the house, the part that the customer owns.
Okay. So,
You'll do that work, Chris?
That's what we're looking at funding.
so the grant might cover some of those costs, so we don't have to charge the homeowner the whole.
That's what we're looking
That's
at.
interesting, yeah. It also got into broadband project potential, don't know where that's at.
Yeah, we're going to have an update on that and the our funding a little later, a little more brief than what we had now.
Okay, then we talked about the gas supply capacity management, and NPU has the rights to purchase gas and store it, basically, through our low-pressure system, distributed to homes and other businesses. And that's called an asset. To me, it's an intangible asset, because you can't say, oh, here it is, you know, that's a tangible asset. An intangible asset is a right, but you can call it an asset if it makes them happy, I don't care. I guess that asset has to be renewed every year and paid for to have those rights continue. The price went up about $1 million for the next year's. Is that right? Something.
The value went up, not the price. The value.
The value went up. I'm sorry.
Big difference there.
Yes. So says AEBM provide a proposal to enter to renew the contract for the November 1, 21 through October 31, 22 contract with an asset management fee of $2.7 million. I thought that's $1 million more than the previous year.
Yeah, so that's the value bringing back to us, so our rates are gonna go down. Steve's gonna go into a discussion of that right after this.
Oh, okay, that'd be great. So that's, I'm not sure how all that works, but Steve probably knows better. So, the other thing we talked about, which was kind of interesting, was the debt management policy for the NPU. Basically, in a nutshell, we're trying to conform to what the city's standards are for borrowing, and we don't want any department to get overly leveraged because it could affect the bond ratings. And the city kind of uses this as standard. I think it's Moody's BBB bond rating for a minimum.
The city is, Moody's double A rated.
Oh, double A. So these standards would also be double A. Yeah, okay. So we're only, allowed to borrow enough for each department where we're not exceeding the limitations of lending for a double A credit, basically, as I understand. That was kind of interesting. There's a lot of moving parts in there, I'm sure, that I'm not privy to, and I don't need.
Yeah.
I think it's a good policy.
Yeah, so what we're looking for is everybody to digest it, what we provided as a written policy, everybody's gotten that policy last week. And then we'll have further discussion at the next Finance and Audit Committee meeting, and hopefully be able to bring that forward to the board in the July meeting for a vote. And then proceed with getting a line of credit.
And then we also discussed some public Wi-Fi issues, which helped me out on that, because
Well, John's over in the corner, and he'll have an update on that in a little bit as well, because we are moving forward.
I don't have anything written on that. And an energy efficiency plan, which I don't think I have any formal written information.
Just coming to do, I'm not civil service. A lot of discussion in the meeting, and we're gonna give the Reader's Digest version tonight, and then, everybody will be up to speed.
All right, do we have any questions for Michael? Hearing none, we can move on to the next item, which is the gas supply contract.
That's right. This is, once again, good news. Steve will be able to present this for us. And this is getting more value for our gas supply contract through Direct Energy. And Steve,
Thank you. So as Mike mentioned, we went through this in a lot more detail in the Finance and Audit Committee meeting. But basically, Direct Energy has been our gas supplier and asset manager since 2016. They were selected through an RFP process back then. The original contract ran through 2020, October of 2020. And we did an RFP in the summer of 2020 during COVID. And we ended up renewing with them for this past year. We lost a lot of value in this past year, really due to uncertainties in the market, and it's really based on how, when they go out and they resell our assets and the value that they can get, and there's a lot of uncertainty. So we did lose about $1 million. Well, we lost actually $3 million last year. So we had to raise the PGA, if you recall, back last year to account for that. So in May, they gave us a proposal. It included an asset management fee of $2.7 million, and that's $1 million more than we had been receiving the year before. So we had an opportunity to renew with them through the contract, so we went and we did that. We've accepted the proposal, and that begins on November 1st of 2021. Will run through October 31st of 2022. The good thing about this is that any value that we get reduces our purchase gas costs. So it's a reduction in purchase gas costs. And our preliminary forecasts indicate that we could lower the purchase gas adjustment, which recovers that volatility in the cost of natural gas by as much as 50% in the November 2021 timeframe. We're also on a rate track to raise rates, I think around 2.3% on November 1st. So what we expect is if we can reduce the PGA by 50%, and we do that coincident with the second phase of this rate track going into effect, customers could end up with likely lower bills for this coming winter than this past winter. And we've done, you know, we got to continue looking at the market and everything before we make that decision to change the PGA. But looking at it right now in the forecast of the market, it could be as much as $10 a month on an average bill. So we're raising the base rates, but the PGA is going to be coming down, and the effect will be a lower bill for customers. So that's our plan. We're going to, of course, continue to monitor the natural gas market and wholesale costs, and continue to look at the PGA on a monthly basis, with the hopes that we are going to, you know, be able to reduce it significantly for November 1st.
So, Steve, we had some concern 2 months ago when we approved 3-year rate program, that in the case of both electric and gas, it did not include what the dynamics of the purchase gas and the purchase electric, purchase power of the components. And so I think there was some concern on the board's part that, oh gee, we're making a big deal about we're holding down rates, but in fact there's this volatile component that could actually increase rates.
Right.
Well, what you're saying is it's actually going to potentially decrease rates as opposed to increase.
In this case, yes.
Decrease from last year.
A decrease from last year. Decreased bills, right? The base rates would be going up, the PGA is going down, the effect, customers' bills will be going down. So it's a great story, especially after COVID and everyone, you know, coming out of that, it's a good story.
Good.
It's going to be good for our customers.
And when you're hearing inflation and everything else, the expectation is it would be higher this year.
Absolutely.
Value is so good that we're going to get.
Yeah, and we just renewed for 1 year. We have another renewal period subsequent to that through 2023. We'll see what the market's like that. Hopefully, things are going to rebound, and we'll be able to establish a lot more value subsequent to this year.
And do we have any concern over time about gas supply? I mean, my understanding is that the state of New York has banned construction of any new gas pipelines. And that's about the only way we can get delivery of gas, I think.
Yeah.
By pipeline.
Luckily, in Massachusetts, they have, I think, luckily we took part in 2 pipeline expansions projects over the past 10 years. Those were really the only 2 successful pipeline projects in the Northeast. There were others in Maine, Massachusetts, that were, although they were approved, they were never built, or they never got through the full approval process. We have plenty of capacity on the pipes. That's no problem. Matter of fact, we're in better position than we ever were, and we have access directly back to Marcellus Shale, which is the lowest cost of natural gas in the world.
Okay.
So we're in a very good position going forward at this time. I don't foresee the need to be involved in any other pipeline expansion.
And Marcellus in Western Pennsylvania.
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yep.
Do we have any other questions?
I actually stood on top of the Marcellus deposit, along with about 1 million other people, when I was in central Pennsylvania last year.
Can you get a picture, Mike?
It was a tour. It was a tour, and we were operating out of Lockport, New York, and Wellsboro, Pennsylvania. And one day we went to get a presentation by Dominion Oil, and the guy had all the maps on the Marcellus deposit system and how they were drilling, getting the gas out. It's pretty interesting. Obviously, reduced energy costs phenomenally well in this country.
Yeah, from an importer of energy to an exporter.
Yeah.
We can stay that way. That technology.
Yeah, we just hope it stays there.
All right, great. That is, if we have no other questions, we can move on to the next
John Covey will give us a brief presentation on where we are and how we're proceeding, and looking forward to having some Wi-Fi in the near future.
Hopefully, yeah. So thankfully, very grateful to be here and give you some update tonight. This is an existing project that I think I briefed you on prior to this, talking a little bit about the project the state has put together for wireless throughout the state that they've extended to the community of Norwich. Next slide, please, Steve. So just as a quick reminder, this is a state project called the Everyone Learns Initiative through the Governor's Office. It's being administered by CEN, Connecticut Education Network. There's 107 towns that have been identified in Connecticut that are receiving this, these wireless devices. This is the same project that New London has active right now. Within this statewide project, it's a pilot for Norwich to put up public access Wi-Fi for the community. We've been given 8 devices under this program to establish this connection throughout the city, or different locations throughout the city, excuse me. Each device covers about 2 blocks. And I'm coordinating with CEN and Norwich Free Academy on the best locations for these within the city. The project itself is targeted by the state for underserviced areas. The criteria is determined by the state on where they would like to see these devices. The free Wi-Fi is metered so that folks can't have too much access at one time, and it's filtered for content. So there's, no questionable content being accessed by the public. Next slide, please. So from the time I last spoke to you folks, we initially had 8 devices. We've got an additional 5 at no cost for MPU, so we can extend that to more locations in the city. Before we go much beyond that, we want to get some feedback from that to find out how pervasive this is, what the adoption rate is, and so forth, before we look to put any more with that particular project. Of the new locations, we're looking at the main offices here, the customer service center across the street, the City Hall, Norwich Police Department, and the Rose City Senior Center. The chip shortage has unfortunately affected the availability of these devices. We're still waiting for them to be delivered. The initial configuration and setup is going to be done by CEN on their bench before they're delivered here. Once they're delivered here, we can work with the crews to get these installed on the actual poles in the neighborhoods where they need to be. But it's also competing with other summer projects. Sorry, yes?
Thank you. I was born in 1946. When I grew up, we had pencils and erasers, so a lot of this stuff doesn't come second nature to me. But, I know in our office, we have Wi-Fi accessibility.
Yes.
You put in the code 1040, the password.
Right.
You get it. You know what 1040 stands for, right?
No.
That's your tax form.
Tax form. All right. Yeah, all right.
You said that already. So we can't forget that number. We're pretty basic people here.
Right.
But, at any rate, you don't need Wi-Fi to work your cell phone, right? I mean, that can work almost anywhere.
It works faster than Wi-Fi.
It works faster on Wi-Fi?
Yeah.
So what is the jumping off point, from your cell phone to your laptop or your,
Right.
I'm not sure where the fuzzy line is there that the Wi-Fi gets you to this point where
Right.
you didn't have Wi-Fi or only at this point. Is there a way to explain that?
That's a good thing I have done. I've had actually visual aids on my phone to help you out.
Oh, I don't mean to hold up your whole thing.
So the access through the Wi-Fi access is access directly to the internet. Now, with any given cell phone, you have data coverage that's on this device that allows you to access the internet through the data connection that you pay for with this device. This iPad, by the way, is my own personal iPad. I have elected not to have data on this iPad because I can go through the cell phone if necessary, or I find places that have broadband Wi-Fi. The laptops that you see here, most of the laptops we have don't have data connection. So for those to get access, you kind of have to have some kind of Wi-Fi to be able to connect. So the main thing when you look at these, a lot of what you're doing, the work that you're doing, it's all about form factor.
So if the laptop has data connections in it, you don't necessarily need Wi-Fi?
Correct.
That's
But
what I didn't understand.
Yeah. So say someone who doesn't have a data connection, or it's a student who happens to have an iPad or a Chromebook, having a Wi-Fi, broadband, free Wi-Fi access is have data connections, you have to have a plan for this to broadcast its Wi-Fi hotspot to be able to use it for another device. So that's kind of where the decision, the tipping point kind of comes in. Did that explain it sufficiently?
Yeah, I think so, thank you.
Excellent.
And this is going to be free Wi-Fi, correct?
Yes.
Yes, exactly.
Or is it an
So it's given service, so someone who does not have
Yeah.
the ability to pay for Comcast or,
anything? Yeah.
you know, they don't have that cable coming into their house, they can access it in the outside space, and then they'll come in, and they'll have some penetration too, John.
Yeah, it depends on the structure. I mean, an outside Wi-Fi will be out, kind of like out in the air. But things like metal structures, brick structures, even like Wi-Fi with water, will kind of suck that Wi-Fi signal. And so certain areas are going to be served better than others, depending on the location. But it will have permeability for roughly 2 city blocks.
And I don't know about the public system, but NFA has a large number of laptop computers that they make available to students.
Yeah. They're searching what they call a one-to-one initiative, where every student has access to some device that allows them to get their assignments and turn in work and so on, and communicate with the other students. Through this program, there's 2 parts to the Wi-Fi. One thing that came into the state is that they want to have what they call single click, where you don't have to sign in and enter a password and come up with something else and all this. So the state wanted to keep it simple for this particular program. Click on CP-free Wi-Fi, and then you're in the CP-free Wi-Fi. There's a sister product that goes with that called EduRoom. What EduRoom does is it takes the credentials for an NFA student, a Norwich public school student, or even a college student at, say, Yale New Haven or Connecticut College, and it allows them to log into their school via any place that CEN has one of these devices. So if you're in downtown Middletown, you can log in and get NFA schoolwork because of the availability of this stuff. This is part of the governor's whole project. Where was that? Oh, so once we get the devices, the idea is we can get them installed on the poles, but we are kind of competing with some of the existing summer work. Obviously this has priority, and we'll try to get that as quickly as we can. Configuration and rollout, this is all being kind of coordinated with the governor's office. Whatever announcements that they may want to have coming out of this, we can roll out after that. Next slide. So that might be a little hard to see, but that's just kind of the graph of the different locations that we have identified for these devices so far. The 5 additional that I talked about tonight were the service area here, customer service, City Hall, Rose City Senior Center, the police department, and then these other locations, including Howard Brown Park and Otis Library, were ones that were identified prior to this. The criteria that the state is looking for is for a device that is publicly accessible, that has access to a number of students in an underserved community, and then what we were looking for is a place where there's not a lot of impact on us. We could basically hand on the pole connected. Take the next slide. And these were just kind of some links to some of the other community resources, state resources, et cetera, about the CEN. So without any questions, I can answer efficiently. I know I went through that really quick. I can talk fast.
Do you have any questions? No? Well, thank you very much. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is the energy efficiency plan.
All right, so this is another opportunity to make, lemonade out of the lemon. COVID-19 has provided us a lot of lemons, and with that, we're looking at opportunities to increase our efficiency programs and get more value back to our customers. So, yeah, that's the information that's going on.
All right, sounds good. Thanks, Chris. So, looking at the first slide, as Chris already mentioned, COVID-19, it's really been almost 2 years that the efficiency side has slowed way down. We could see it coming, and then we had a year and a half of action being in COVID, where all voluntary upgrades and whatnot were generally much less popular. So we had about half the expense in our energy efficiency program, and a lot of what we did have actually was more on the residential side. Again, in that last year and a half. The full 2 quick goals that we have in our strategic plan here And, the first one being to promote economic development, and expand revenue, both traditional and entrepreneurial. So one of the things that, traditionally energy efficiency that we've always thought about it as a retrofit. And that still exists, and that's something that we help a lot of businesses with. But when I get to later in the presentation, you'll see a lot of the customers we're working with. And much of this, even on traditional energy efficiency, is low growth. So it's either development, it's electrification of heating, we'll talk about that on our CHIP program, electric vehicles, things along those lines. So it has transformed somewhat. And again, I think that's really speaks to the win-win, and that is the fact that we can save our customers money, we can make the community and our customers more competitive, and also create more revenue that ultimately goes back in our payments to the city as well. So the second goal is increasing the level of customer satisfaction and knowledge of NPU. So as part of that, again, looking for ways that we can help customers save money on their utility. Next slide. There you go. So these again are some of the our ongoing efficiency programs. I mentioned about new construction and major renovations again being a major focus. Zero interest financing. It's something we've had almost at the beginning of the program back in 2006 with 9 of our local lenders. We do a 0% financing program on the commercial side, and we buy down the interest, which is $20,000 to $30,000 a year, but it enables. When we initially implemented this, we almost doubled the participation in the program, and we've seen that continue. So we thank our local partners on that. On the residential side is a Smart E-loan, again, with Connecticut Green Bank, and they actually secure loans. Eastern and Core Plus are the 2 lenders that participate in this, and this allows customers to borrow money for, we were talking a little bit earlier about sort of extra fees, things like that, but when you're talking about upgrading your heating system, it can be $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 if you combine it with other initiatives. This provides a financing vehicle for that. So that's good to have. A home energy savings program where we still quite popular, going into homes, providing energy education, sealing up doors and windows, things along those lines. And again, if you haven't had one in the past 2 years, we will actually come to visit again when we find the term retrocommissioning, right? Things change over time, so it allows us to catch that. Full choice program, which is our traditional air conditioning, high efficiency air conditioning central air system, and that includes heat pumps and geothermal. But we're going to talk about our CHIP program, which is the enhanced portion of that. Residential and commercial natural gas rebates, those remain unchanged, and again, we're very extensive as part of our natural gas expansion. We even have rebates for things as simple as the window air conditioner. Yeah, high efficiency window air conditioner is still very popular. We get a $60 rebate for that. And so, next slide, please. All right, so EV, something we talked about a lot. We have the 2 commissioners here who now have one a hybrid and one a full EV. So we walk the walk as well as talk the talk, and it's great to see. So I apologize, this may be a little hard to see, but essentially, because of the additional funds, we're looking to enhance these rebates. So, for example, if you have a new plug-in hybrid like Bob does, the rebate will go from $500 to $1,000. For that, from $1,000 to $1,500 for the purchase of a new fully electric vehicle, $250 to $500 for the purchase of a used hybrid vehicle, and again, it has to be a plug-in hybrid, not just a traditional hybrid, on $500 to $1,000 for a used EV. Charging stations, again, are going to be a big component of this. So we doubled the rebate from $500 to $1,000 for residential charging stations. The idea is, we know this is coming. It's just a question of what the timing is. We've talked to any of the major auto manufacturers. Everyone is all in and committed, but we really want to get experience with this, with the customers, learn what works, learn what doesn't work, so that we are positioned to support our customers as we move forward. So in addition to the direct feedback I've been getting, this will be good to see across the.
It's a good thing, because mine costs $1,000, my charging, just to get the, power out of the garage. So,
It's not an old thing.
No, yeah, I mean, you have to hire an electrician, and depending on how far you have to go. You gotta put in conduit. It's not a small little, you don't just want to wire from your fuse panel up in the garage.
It's a very good point. Significant infrastructure investment. Hopefully, at least the equipment will become less expensive as it becomes more popular. That's the hope anyway, but again, we're trying to.
Save money, still may not come over to your house.
That'll be the next extension course, we run it out. We also have partnered, in the West Ledge, some of the new, multifamily developments going in, we partnered, with them to put in charging stations. We want to continue that, by increasing our incentive from $1,000 to $3,000 per unit. Again, still, the units are usually 6,000 or more, for commercial level 2. And when I say level 2, that's the medium voltage that you would have in your home with a 220 or, 240 at a commercial location. And, 2,000 up to 4,000 for a public use station. So there's one down at the parking deck down at the Oregon, for instance, that is for public use. Go on to the next slide. All right, and so, again, we continue to do lighting upgrades. Again, many of these are new construction, not just upgrades to existing. 50 to 75% for small, 25 to 50% for medium, and 25 to 50% for large. Helping customers, everybody's been impacted. We're in a position to help them stay in the community, remain competitive, and do the right thing again. CHIP, which is our heat pump program, heard a lot about electrification of heating. So we targeted this primarily to customers that were not able to participate in the natural gas expansion. So even though we increased our customer base and our load by 25% as part of that initiative, it only serves about half of the residences and businesses in Norwich. So this is something we can offer as an alternative to oil and other fuels that saves the customer money and again keeps that revenue in the community. So it's a home run across the board. We have about 75, I believe, of these in progress at this point. We'd love to increase that. So we're increasing the incentive. We're actually doubling from $1,200 to $2,400. Great technology. It's just a matter of getting it out there and finding with these programs that once the word of mouth, you know, your friend and your neighbor, if the company tells you one thing, your friend and your neighbor both have it and tell you how well it's working for them, now you're all in. That's what we're really trying to take the opportunity for with the CHIP program. And then, you know, along that, increasing our incentive by 50% for installation, primarily attic installation, to keep that heat in the building. Take it to the next slide. All right, so then where does this leave us as far as budget, which is what everybody's asking. So I'm going to apologize, this is a little bit smaller than I thought it might come out. But currently our fund balance is about $1.25 million. We anticipate taking in about $1 million this year. This is the mandated collection that we do, and we've done since 2004. And that'll give us total available funds of a little over $2.2 million. Miscellaneous expenses, program administration, consultants, things along those lines, $200,000. The anticipated spend with these enhanced incentives would be about $1.1 million. So that's about $500,000 more than if we just kept everything exactly the way it was and went forward. So after that, it leaves us a little less than $1 million in the bank. So we're not spending everything, but I think we have an opportunity here to help our customers and also grow our load at the same time. So go to the next one. And speaking of customers, these are some, and it's funny, at 5 o'clock today, I got a call from John Shaughnessy over at the Norwich Inn, and they're putting a new 120-ton chiller in over there. So they want to work with us on making sure that they pick an efficient option. So we'll be over there as soon as tomorrow looking at that. Anima, one everyone knows about. This will be for phase 3. We've already helped them with phase 1 and 2. The West Ledge development with the Gebbies, Otis Library, Housing Authority, Shelby Garden Bank, Alice, Norton, Bathfield Landing, Cara, Hill Mill, and the list goes on. So this is part of our standard offer. When an MPU coordinator goes out and meets with the developer, this is part of the package, and this is part of what we use to make sure that that development occurs here in the community and as competitive as possible. That's my presentation for tonight, and if anybody has any questions?
So I got a friend at work that's, he wants to be totally green. So he kind of looked into a heat pump, not heat pump, a geothermal unit. Take a wild guess. What do you got for an estimate?
$30,000.
$50,000. Part of that was he had to do ductwork in the house.
Right.
Okay, why'd you get these big federal subsidies for that?
Yeah.
And then he lives in Montville, not Norwich, so he won't get what you're offering.
Right.
But it gets it down to about $30,000, from 50 down to 30, just from all
Still a very
the
long.
state and the federal relief on it. But still, it's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money, and if you look at these are air source heat pumps. So the only difference is that the systems we have use the air to cool versus using the water out of the ground. The compressor, or the system is so much more efficient now that it can work better with the warmer air. It doesn't benefit as much from having the cooler water from the ground.
Right. So I looked into it briefly, but the cost kind of scared me away. To go geothermal, but I'm still interested in getting, when my air conditioner blows up, I want to get a.
We do have 3 days for geothermal.
Low, yeah, I saw that. That's,
Yeah, it might not be $30,000.
no. But he hired a company, I think, out of like Waterbury or something like that.
Okay.
But also there was something called Dandelion, which is, I think it's either Google or Apple.
Okay.
It's their company. And there is, I'll call it, not as helpful as you'd like, because they're sort of a startup company, and he called them, and they came over, and it was nothing compared to the company he hired. It was, as far as customer service and getting back to and things like that, so it's called Dandelion, but it's kind of a Silicon Valley startup kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't hire them.
Jeff, do you have a short list of contractors on the heating and cooling?
So we don't, as a public utility, we don't get in the business of specifying contractors. The Green Bank has to keep an approved contractor list, which is handy for customers to get information on who, because you always wonder who am I going to call. They look it up on the internet or used to look it up in the old pages, right? But we're careful to stay out of that business of recommending one contractor over the other for that reason.
So the homeowner does that themselves?
The homeowner does that themselves. We're their technical advocate in the process, but we don't get into contractual relationships between them. And that's different than the investor-owned utilities. The investor-owned utilities pick contractors and use them to drive the program. We don't have to do that because we're a community utility, so we can work with the customers directly.
So we've got pluses and minuses in this program, right? There are some things, like what we did with Bob's Furniture, for example, or the city street lighting, it's going to cost us money. That's a minus. There are other things where we can convince somebody who has, let's say, an oil furnace to convert to an HVAC, or if they, get rid of a gas car and get an electric car or whatever, we benefit, we get additional savings. And then separate from all of that, for the people who are doing rooftop solar, that's a negative for us. So, putting all of this together, what do you think this does for our community over time?
No, it's a great question. So if you look at it straight up, and I forget how many kilowatt hours, but it's about $3 million a year since the program inception.
Yeah.
This has reduced revenue, probably another $1.5 million on the gas side. I mean, just blatantly, honestly, up front. But you also have to think about it on the flip side. Bob's Furniture, for instance, makes them competitive to be here, right? So I don't know what they're competing against other warehouses and how much they put here and how much they put there. So as we look at developing, especially on the commercial side, 80% of a load is much better than 0% of a full load, right? And so that's the way we approach it. And, we work with customers on a long-term energy plan. So this is something where you might be working on a 2, 3, 4, 5-year plan, with a customer. Hey, we're going to do our compressors this year, we're going to do our lights next year, things along those lines. And that gets you a lot of field position with things. The other thing I didn't mention too, Bill was out with Katie Dice was down here about 6 weeks ago or so looking at our fish lift. One of the first things she mentioned were, how proactive the organization was and about some of our expansion programs and some other things, which was really nice to hear. But that's important because ultimately this gets reported through CMEC, but it gets reported back to the state. And we worked very hard back in 2004 to make sure that we had the autonomy to do what's right for our community and not be governed by the entire state. And that's one of, it's not my opinion, I know one of the things that's made this so successful for us is because we've been able to differentiate in a way that's good for the community.
But as we go into electric vehicles and the combined heat unit, that's where that growth is gonna happen. And this is, we're just at the infancy of this. And that's really where we can significantly grow.
I calculated, a couple of years ago, if everybody in Norwich drove an electric car, they'd sell $12 million worth of electricity. Assuming they plugged in at their house, which they will.
You gotta buy a few transformers too.
Well, you gotta, but that's a lot of, well, right now we sell, what, $40 million or $50 million of electricity? That's like a 25% increase in load, so.
And when we get there, we could also start talking about time to use rates, ways of lowering our demand overall. So it's increased load, you only charge it after 8 p.m. or you the right number. And we can actually lower overall wholesale costs while selling more electrons. That's another opportunity when we go from 100 cars in Norwich to 1,000 cars in Norwich.
So, go ahead.
My perspective on this is the energy efficiency can make us competitive with utility pricing in the area and hopefully beyond the area, although we're so far off of that, when you look at the southern utility prices. Can we reach some kind of equivalency with those other areas of the country eventually through this technology?
It's an interesting point you brought up. I didn't look at against the southern utilities, but I did an exercise maybe a year or two ago, and I looked at a customer who had upgraded their energy efficiency and what their bill was. At the end of the day, it's what you write the check for, right? And then I took every rate increase we've had in like the last 18 years, and they were paying less than if they had kept the same rate and done absolutely nothing. So not exactly what you asked, but that was something that we had looked at,
Because if you want to draw business into the area, we've got to be in the ballpark on energy prices today.
Yeah, but Mike, the ISO New England grid compared to Tennessee Valley is apples and oranges. And New England, NIMBY, you're not putting the power plant anywhere you want, but, in places where nobody wants them. We're never gonna match that, but we can bridge the gap, and we have, great communities for colleges, education, technology, people want to be here if they can just get it a little closer.
Yeah, that's good, we can get it closer.
All right, great. If there are any other questions, if not, we will move on. The next item on the agenda is the new customer bill statement.
So everyone has a sample in their package. And Jeff will give just a brief update of our implementation plan. We're almost there.
So you're almost there. We're in the final stages of implementing, so we will be implementing this in July. It takes an entire month to go through a billing cycle for everyone to get through the new process. We are actually currently using the new vendor to send out the bills. So now it's just to generate it with the new statement. So honestly, there's not much more to say other than that. I know we had a more extensive discussion on it last month about Mike, we did incorporate your feedback, and then he says that they can come in to pay their bill and what the hours are. We're not, that's been added to the back page of this. That's about it. So
I have a quick question. CMEC's strategic plan doesn't define this, but it talks in terms of finding ways for CMEC to use its combined purchasing authority for the six utilities to improve efficiency. In the future, I'm not suggesting we change anything. In the future, is this something that we could get together with, Groton and Jewett City and Basra and SNU and the third taxing district and cut a better deal for this sort of billing service? Or is this something that is not doable?
One of the problems is we all have, a large number of have different billing systems, and to replace a billing system is an enormous undertaking.
2003 and 2005. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, so in that regard, it's very different. But whenever we are going to look for a new system, we are always in contact with Groton, often others, but always at least Groton. Groton has larger base, they're more our size.
Yeah.
Jewett City is a different ballpark. Bosworth's a part of Groton. Snoop, deep, very small. But, on this one here, it's the integration of your billing system into a piece of paper. It's not just a piece of paper. So, but Groton has a lot of the same systems we have, and we always work closely together. Right now, we're in the process of looking at getting another safety consultant in with an RFP process. We've talked to all of you, and we actually before were sharing the Groton consultant as well, and it was savings there because we were using the same thing for similar.
Any other questions? The next item is the strategic plan discussion, update for the second quarter.
All right, so, we are, everyone has the update in their package, the green, the yellow, the red, and things that were impacted by COVID are now going from that yellow or red status back into a normal mode. Also in the packages that we provide to everyone, we have two proposals, for choosing the consultant, to go forward with our, strategic planning effort that we want to at least start having the meetings in the, late summer, early fall, with a plan of getting that, strategic plan completed next spring. The two consultants, you're both called. Maybe you're not aware of both, but we got Jackie Jackson and Wagner. Stacy has worked with us on the last strategic plan, someone we can work well with, very smart, I think, a good facilitator. We also have a proposal from Hometown Connections, Tim Blodgett. He comes with more utility experience than just general, facilitation experience. They both, but Stacy has a stronger communications background, so she is very good at getting us to promote it when we do it. So staff is good with either of the vendors, and we're looking for some guidance from the board on this.
Well, I think both CMEX strategic plan and NPU strategic plan are pretty well done. I think NPU is better, and I think our monitoring is better. And the system's working, and I don't know why we didn't change it. So I would prefer her rather than him. Stu, I don't know whether, do you have thoughts about the two strategic plans and which one you think is done? I think they're both good. I'm not being critical, but.
Yeah, the monitoring action, Bob, is something that we built in-house, and Marilyn originally is one of who does that. And we probably didn't see that thing, shows something a little different. But, yeah, you look at plan, a little different, and,
Yeah, I didn't have a strong opinion, to be honest, either way. I mean,
The costs are comparable.
a little more for Hometown Connections.
Yeah.
You're paying for a few more trips. But I don't think the difference in budget is warranted of a major part of the decision. It's really what the board feels most comfortable.
Yeah, I haven't met Stacy, but I mean, I've met Tim here when he gives his presentation. He's very, very knowledgeable. I was very impressed with him. I don't know if it would be beneficial to have somebody with that deep utility experience and knowledge. I don't know if she does as much.
Yeah, so she's more of a communications firm, less industry knowledge, but has worked with us enough to know our business and has worked with strategic planners. So it's not like she's coming in blind and we're going to get somebody who doesn't understand our business.
She did our business strategic plan.
Yeah. I'm fine with that. I mean, that's a good document.
So we, what, a year and a half, 2 years ago, finished up the plan with Stacy.
And what's the difference between that plan and this plan?
Is forward thinking, Mike, what do we need to focus on? We will talk about, items that we want to emphasize. Last time we started talking about youth by heat chip programs. This will maybe take that a step further. We need to, and if we choose one over the other, we can also bring in, some consultant, Tim, to maybe walk us through some industry forward-looking items.
That's kind of what I was thinking, maybe we could do some, not completely, but when you need it.
I wasn't done, but
Oh, sorry.
it's okay.
Okay.
But I really wasn't impressed with the last one we did. They asked us questions about stuff that we didn't know anything about, for the most part. I thought it was kind of ridiculous. I mean, for us to meet in a vacuum without any professional expertise to discuss these issues was a complete waste, nearly a complete waste of time, in my opinion. Just want to put that out there for you.
So Mike, I came on board halfway through the process and was not involved in the initial board discussions when this whole thing happened. So I don't have a good, I thought we got to a good place at the end, but I didn't have a good feel for the whole process and how it started.
We may have gotten to a good place at the end, but, I mean, we were trashing around, having no idea what the heck we were doing, in my opinion, with a lot of this. I don't really feel like going through that again.
Are you talking about the one we did 2 years ago, or are you
Yes.
talking about the one that Tim was here for? Well, we didn't explain.
Tim didn't cover this. Tim came in and gave us,
Talking about the one we did with Stacy. That was 2 years ago. Yeah. It wasn't, maybe some good things came out of it, but I think it was more from your side than from our side. And I don't think we should have board members meeting separately in your side, the professionals meeting separately. I think we need to hear everything you guys are saying and do it all together. I think that's just frustrating, because we don't have the technical knowledge. The way it was done, I was very mad.
Well, I respect your opinion, but quite frankly, I thought effectively what happened was that the board met with her and came up with our plan. And the staff met with her and came up with its plan. And then we all came together and we discussed everything and changed some things toward what the staff wanted, some things toward what we thought we wanted, and so forth and so on.
We could have done that the first time around.
My sense with Tim is that he managed the process with closely.
With who?
Tim Blythe, the other guy.
I don't know.
Yeah, he was there.
he did our governance.
That's different, that's not the strategic plan.
Well, I understand.
I'm talking about the strategic plan.
Right, but he's putting together a proposal, so.
But since you mentioned Tim Bludgeon, I wasn't impressed with him either. And he talked to us like, I didn't know anything about us. He said, for the amount we get paid, you got to do this, and this. It's some other, you need to say something, do something, not just be blah, blah, blah. We came in here with a big mess to clean up, he didn't know anything about it. It's kind of ridiculous. My opinion.
We have to make a decision tonight.
No.
I would like to look through this a little closer, and come back.
What I would like to do is have a consultant in place for that August, September timeframe. And that gives us enough time, it's hard to do this, all getting the meetings with staff and everybody else in the middle of the summer. But to meet that spring of 22 timeframe, you back that up. We really got to be kind of rolling in September.
I think it might be helpful if we not only had the NPU strategic plan in front of us, but also the CMAC one, because we're talking about the two vendors and what ultimately came from their work.
So, and I think I can do one better for you, Bob. Because CMAC and NPU are a little bit apples and oranges. how about I pull up the garage plan, which they just finished, and they were working at the same time, and you'll get a feel for that, and then everybody has our strategic plan, so let's go.
Who did Ross?
Tim Logic was doing that at the same time he was doing the CMAX.
I think that would be helpful.
Yeah. Yep, and also, you know, even if we go, with someone else like Stacy, you kind of see where drops go, and that'll also be another good data set to see, you know, they don't have gas, but now they have water, sewer, and electric, so, and they're dealing with the same issues we're dealing with.
A little bit of cable.
Not much, I think we've got more cable than they do right now, they just got the debt.
Yeah, that's it.
Well, I hope you don't have to spend 5 days on a mission statement all over it, so that's.
Like, I think we get, you know, either consultant, there's a lot more knowledge of us. One's done it once, one spent some significant time with it. We won't have to go through and start from scratch.
Good.
Either way.
We just did all that stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, that'll be it.
Okay, so we'll have this next month's agenda again. Well, I'll get the ROT plan and the CMAX plan to everyone, and everyone's got ours, so we should be good to go.
That's good. All right, that sounds good. The next item on the agenda is the American Recovery something plan, the COVID plan, and infrastructure bill update.
So for ARPA, there haven't been any significant changes since our last finance and audit committee meeting. We reviewed the fact that the interim rule came out in May of 2021, and that's the guidance for the spending. The most recent update to the frequently asked questions was June 24th. We're monitoring those every day. And their question period goes through July 16th. So we anticipate that subsequent to that question period closing, there'll be some additional information to us. In the meantime, we are working with the city in their plan. While we didn't receive direct funding with this first amount of dollars that came in, we are working with the Department of Public Works. It does have a water project. Is Larry available for tonight to give a comment on that?
Larry is on.
Yes, he is. Can you hear me?
Give an overview? Yes.
Yep. So back in can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Larry?
How about now?
We can hear you, Larry.
Great. So back in the end of May, early June, we were approached by Public Works Director Pat McLaughlin and City Engineer Brian Long to help them come up with a solution to provide water for 4 properties on Waurika Street. We went through several iterations coming down from the high pressure zone in Yannick Tank, from the lower pressure zone on Atrabando Avenue itself. We came up with a solution that would extend about 1,200 feet of 8-inch main, a little bit on Atrabando down Waurikas, with a fire hydrant that would serve both those medical buildings, and then a 2-inch main out to the properties on Waurikas Street. It was probably the lowest cost option that we had, but also provided the water quality that we required out there. We presented those findings back to Public Works on June 2nd.
So that project is being funded out of the first set of dollars that's coming from ARPA, and we're continuing to work with the city on any potential opportunities as well, along with keeping our eye on any of the other infrastructure programs that are outstanding, including the Congress infrastructure plan that's being evaluated right now, along with any other potential ARPA funding for infrastructure as it goes along for the next year with this process.
So what would NPP goal be in that? Would they actually oversee that more like extension, or would you?
Well, because we would own the asset, we will help manage that project. So they will completely fund it, they will do, you know, all of the dollars, but anything that goes is adding to ours, it's going to be done to our standards. So we will make sure it's designed to our standards, and then we will help facilitate the management of that.
But the city will hire, those lots of bid.
The city will hire somebody like a CLA engineer to design it, come up with a bid package, go out to bid, and then when the project is bid, we would be involved in making sure it's installed to our standards, and then we would make sure it's commissioned, and then we would take over the ownership.
My big concern was, and I think the cost estimate at the time was $800,000.
Yes.
You know, that may go up. I mean, if the countryside went up, if it's $1 million, and if it's gonna be connecting, you know, maybe 3 residential properties and another project, that's close to
That-
250.
Not to interrupt, but that estimate was driven right off the bids from the Countryside, the bids we just got back from Countryside. I used those up those costs. Those are pretty as up to date as we're gonna get. Yep, those are I use the latest costs we got for Countryside to develop that estimate for Public Works.
So, you know, to me, I mean, it seems like a lot of money, $250,000, or close to $250,000. And, you know, and I don't know what our role is, you know, it's more the city that's driving that. And, you know, it's just to me, it's cost efficient. I mean, I don't even know those 3 houses together would be worth $250,000.
Yeah, and that's, we've given the cost estimate. We're not gonna get the revenue from four.
No.
So, there's really no value to us other than assisting the city.
And how many upgrades in terms from Monteverde to the medical center, is that a big plus for us? I mean,
So there's 2 lines that run to those 2 medical centers, and they're run by over by Rick Ballpark. So long spaghetti lines, when we go by, we'll connect them into the new. We really wanted this project to happen in 2013, when it was going in to reduce the cost of the contractors there. I mean, or for the developers.
do you have any, maybe Larry does, any, the estimate to do that one, Larry?
What was that again?
What, do you know what the cost to connect it to the new 2 connections to the medical centers would be, based on that $800,000?
Yeah, I don't know what exactly those service connections would be. I mean, it all depends because you'd have to, it goes behind the buildings. There's like, I think it's a 2 or 4 inch copper line that goes down over it goes actually underneath the brook and all that stuff and serves behind both the medical centers. It would be a shorter run to get to the front of that building. But it would not, they would,
Go up to, Browning, which is the 8-inch, and right in front of the, Browning network.
Yeah, so actually 8-inch would go up to just past the medical centers.
Yeah.
And then we go 2 inch all the way up. If we ran 8-inch,
Yeah.
there's nobody up there and we would have bad water quality.
Okay, all right, that was my concern was.
So was this whole thing that the city decided to go run the main or pay from the main up to these 3 or 4 houses? And was that done just to avoid a lawsuit because there was potential pollution coming into their wells from the landfill, that they could turn around and sue the city for the damages to their wells? How did they get the attention of the city? That's kind of what I'm asking.
You know, I know a little bit about this farm pollution, and the Rotten Gun Club, I mean, I don't know that I personally think that the landfill has impacted that well. I think it could get that source. The other 2 or 3 houses are impacted with sodium chloride, probably from runoff from Browning Road, but also from 2 and 32. Okay. So maybe 1 out of the 4 might be landfill, but the others are strictly road salt.
Okay, all right, but whether it's the landfill or whether it's road salt, they approached the city and said, hey, our wells are destroyed. You guys did it, and we want you to run a main up to our house, essentially. Is that what they said?
Yeah, yes,
Okay.
but whether or not that's a cost-efficient way.
I don't know, what else, but, okay, I don't know. And maybe they can't afford to hire enough legal, clout to go get the city to buy their house, and make them whole. I don't know, but they're up there with no water, so I guess the city said, all right, fine, we'll go run a water main up there. I guess, like you say, it's probably not a great, $250,000 per house. That's a lot of money for water, I get that. But that's what the city decided to do with the money, right?
Right, and so I just didn't know what our role was necessarily.
Yeah, so we're not advocating for this, but we are supporting and assisting, and we will own and operate going forward. Are we charging a fee? Are we charging a fee? No, no plan charging.
And those people that get hooked up who pay for their water bills, only the city pays.
Hard to say.
That's hard to say. We won't be the ones paying.
We know there's an issue, like, for instance, in the Corning Road area, where the customer, or line was run up to the customer, and the customer never paid for it.
The city picked up that, but they contaminated it as well, so.
Yeah. Yeah. Things were done differently back then, and not as documented as probably should have, and, it's just the way it is. And, yeah, but, happy to have initial discussions with the city manager and Public Works. And
If you can bring it up, that is whether or not there are other alternatives, but it certainly doesn't seem cost efficient.
And Bob, when you said are we paying to administer it, all of the as-built and the inspections will be done by a third-party engineer, and we're gonna make sure that our involvement is not having somebody out there all day long. It's gonna be a fraction of a project manager versus 100% of a project manager.
All right, do we have any more questions or comments? If not, we will move on, and the next item is our executive session. So if we can have a motion to go into executive session.
Can I be so bold as to ask that we talk about one thing real quick before from other business? That we might come out of executive session, I know nobody will be here. I had raised the issue a couple weeks ago, an email about ransomware, and while John is here.
That's executive session. That's when we talk about cybersecurity, Stuart, that's an executive session, and
Gentlemen.
and Mr. Tony will be joining us.
All right, very well. Thank you.
To make sure we do address that.
All right, so I have to read my paragraphs here. Like a motion to discuss confidential, trade secret, and commercially valuable confidential or proprietary information not subject to inspection or public disclosure pursuant to section 12105 and 7232A of the Connecticut General Statute. This information is commercially valuable, confidential, and proprietary, and is not public disclosure or public disclosure pursuant to Public Act number 98-212. Also, to discuss personnel matters of an employee or employees and or public official pursuant to chapter 14, section 1206A of the Connecticut General Statute. Do I have a motion to go into executive session?
So,
Michael? Bill? Do we have a motion and a second? All those in favor?
Aye.
It is unanimous. We are in executive session. Who do we want to invite to the session?
So